Hi, welcome.
Hello, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you, and I love your energy and your vibe. I'm really excited about this.
Thank you. Me too. You feel very welcoming, very grounding.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I always feel so awkward, so that's nice to hear.
No, it's just very, yeah, it's a very calming, grounded energy. It feels really good.
That's good. I was dancing to some music trying to get in like, yeah, I'm awake, I'm awake, I'm awake.
I get that. Dancing always is a fun way to prep before doing things.
Oh yeah, I love it. Sorry, I'm blurry. I don't know how to.
You're fine.
There we go. It, it goes in and out.
Just like need a reset. It's fine.
So I'm going to let you just introduce yourself and you can share whatever you want to share about yourself right now.
Hey, awesome. So my name's Amber Kay, and I've been coaching since 2017 or 2016. I always forget which year, but I've been doing it for a long time. Started out really with self-love coaching and kind of started segueing into a lot of energy work as I was introduced to new people. One of my very best friends, Haley, is the first one who ever introduced me to energy work, and it was Reiki. And it was just really cool to learn about that. And yeah, set me on a path of like all these different things coming into my life of like, ooh, what's that? Ooh, I want to learn that. Like, just really curious. I am a lifetime learner. I love to grab different bits and pieces from things and use them when I feel inspired. So it feels really good to have gotten into my own groove of that. Um, I've done medicine women training, and right now I'm almost done with sex, love, and relationship coaching certification, which feels amazing. And it just felt like this natural segue into that. Like, I never, ever would have thought in my entire life I ever would have done any kind of coaching in this realm. And that comes from a lot of like how I grew up feeling a lot of shame around pleasure and sex and even understanding my own body and like being curious. And so when it went into self love, when I first started, it was like, oh, yeah, of course, because I'm learning to say yes to myself and I'm learning all of these things. And I started recognizing that the more I was doing that for myself, the more I was accessing pleasure and a lot more curious and like letting that part of me out. And yeah, it was really, really beautiful. And it's been a lot of healing as well. I've, different relationships in my life growing up. I feel like every relationship I was in, I got cheated on. And that was really rough. And then I had a really hard relationship where that happened, but then I gave him like a million chances more and ended up getting pregnant and having an ectopic rupture. So I had to end up having surgery. And I remember just feeling so worthless. Like, no one's ever going to want me. What am I worth now? I can't even do what, like, quote unquote, woman is supposed to be able to do and have a baby. Like, all of these things happening for me. And so, yeah, when I came into this journey of self-love and then leading into this sex love and relationships and pleasure and really tapping into that and the alchemy, um, I've been on that path for the past few years. And the first year that I did it, I think it was like 2020 or 2021 that I really started diving into that. And that is one of the core beliefs I had from that relationship, feeling like, oh, I ended up having sex and this is what happened. Like, this was the result, and all this pain came from that. And so there was a lot of healing with that. And it was very beautiful and opening for me. And so I'm just grateful. And then I came across Layla when I was searching for more Tantra work, and I just was feeling really drawn to that. And she's the one that I was like, I really love her way that she teaches, her way that she transmits. And so that brought me into this certification to go even deeper and learn more. And it's been so beautiful. and I love working with people, especially on shadow work and the primal. And so learning that in this program has like taken that to a deeper level, which has been really cool. So yeah, and then it's been a beautiful journey with that. I'm a mom of two. My oldest is from a previous marriage, and then I have a 4-year-old with my current husband. And yeah, I love to dance. I love to adventure. I love nature. I love traveling. Um, yeah, that's about me.
That sounds amazing. And it's funny the parallels that we share with some of the knowledge. I'm a forever learner as well. And I I've done the Reiki master course and I actually found Layla, for those who don't know, it's Layla Martin. And I found her back in the beginning of her YouTube days when I was looking for more Tantra teachings because it's really hard to find. It's, well, it's a little easier now, but finding the legitimate stuff is hard. So the fact that she's got such a good background is really helpful. I think it's really interesting how this coaching has shown um, it's like women, it's their number one topic of I felt so much shame within my body and within myself and even external forces or trauma. It's really internalized. And I've noticed that that is the biggest common theme with all the women that I've coached with and outside of a coaching container even. So I think I think this work is really, really important. And if there's anything else that you want to share that dives in a little bit deeper with that, I would love to hear about more of your experience and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, as it relates to shame, I super agree with you. That is so, so common. And I feel like so many beliefs come down to that is like, oh, the shame that's there. But then, like, continuing to hide away that shame and push it away just makes it bigger and bigger. And then you're wondering, like, why am I reacting these ways? Why am I showing up in this way? Why do I keep getting so triggered by this thing over here? And it's like this, it's the pushing away and the shaming of the shame. And that was something for me absolutely for so, so, so long. And even still, there are different layers that pop up where I'm like, oh, I'm obviously still feeling some shame in that area. And so it's been, again, just a process with that, but something that, like the biggest, I feel like so far in my journey, the biggest shame was in that experience in that relationship was, oh, I said I would never have sex before marriage, and I did, and look what happened. And so it was like just beating myself up so much. And then on top of that, feeling like, oh, I must not have shown up good enough, or oh, he must have abandoned me here in the hospital because like I had this ectopic rupture. Like I kept like blaming myself. And then it was just causing more and more of that deep, deep shame of the choice I made. And now, and look what happened. And then but also like I love him and now look what happened. So it's like all of these things that were just building on each other. And that took a really, really long time to even remove even one layer of that. It was so deeply embedded inside of me. And a huge turning point of that to even start that process was when I started like really acknowledging myself and giving myself more attention and having more self-love. But then even I noticed when I got married that there was still those parts of me that were like um, feeling ashamed for what happened in that previous relationship. And so does my husband really love me? Like, does he actually really want to be with me? Like, I've done these things before. And so it just starts affecting everything in your life. It affects you in relationships. It affects you as a parent. It affects you as a friend. It affects you just in your own relationship to yourself. It's so deeply ingrained and something that is so in our face all the time. Um, and you'll notice like once you start digging into that, like all these areas of your life that have been like shifted from that, and now what's happening and why the same things keep getting created. And so it's really powerful to start looking at that, and also in a safe container with someone that can hold you, like whether it's a friend or a coach. Like sometimes it's really hard to go into that on our own. And if we do go into it on our own, sometimes we go so deep that then we just feel more. It's like being able to create a space with someone else that is safe to do that too. So that was really
Yes.
important for me.
I fully agree. And even with some therapists, they'll kind of take you into your trauma and then time's up, gotta go. And you're just left with it. And then the rest of the day, you're just in that state and
Yeah.
pretty much reliving it. And it's awful. So if that's the experience, get a different therapist or coach. It shouldn't be that way.
Yeah,
Um,
for
but
real.
yeah, and I also agree. It's so different doing the work on your own and then doing it with someone else because I was always like a solo practitioner with every kind of practice, every shadow work, and I did go to therapy as well. But as far as like that deep spiritual work, I was the solo practitioner. And then on the retreat for our program, it just broke open a whole new level and it healed a sister wound because we had 100 women there and everybody was going through it. I mean, we felt every emotion possible and everyone was supportive. It didn't matter if you were screaming and crying or laughing and dancing. We all showed up and it was unbelievable. So that really was like the proof of how transformative that safe container and having a support system just changes the game completely. And it really does heal you on a whole new level. Um, yeah, so I think that also really showed how important the work is because it matters so much. And I've noticed that a lot of us coaching, no matter how long you've been in it, or especially if you're new to it, or you're just learning new methods of it, there's a lot of a lot of imposter syndrome. Like, can I do this? Can I actually pull that off? Can I help them? Because we're all so worried about actually being able to help because our heart is in it. And then it gets so scary.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, do you mind sharing a little bit about how you got into the coaching and then how that's kind of transformed as well as
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
facilitator?
Yeah, definitely. And I agree with you. Like, we are never at like 100% knowing everything. Nobody in this world knows everything. And if they tell you different, that's not, they're lying. Like,
Yes.
I'm just gonna straight up say it. Like you were saying, no matter how long you've been coaching, there's different layers, and it's not like you're broken. And it's like it's just uncovering more of who you are. It can be like an exciting, playful, fun journey of doing that and knowing like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just like I'm coming more out as myself, and it's beautiful. And yeah, so as I said, how I got into coaching was I got invited to an event with my previous husband. My friend had been going to these events here where I live, and it was a couples event. And she's like, "Do you guys want to come?" And I was like, "Sure, that'd be awesome. Like, I don't know what it is, but let's try it out." You know, I've always really been interested in growth and learning, and learning more about, especially your like psychology. And so we went to it and it was beautiful. I walked in and I was like, what the people do this in real life? Like, it was so cool. And it lit me up. I didn't know who Tony Robbins was. I didn't know who any of these people were. And I wasn't at a Tony Robbins event, but just like as a reference point of like, I didn't know people did it in real life. I thought like books, but like they were just stories of people, you know?
The
And
motivational
so I was,
speakers.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh, they actually do this as their career. Like, that's cool. And so it was really beautiful. And I knew I was like, this is what I want to do. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. And yeah, that's kind of what got me on the path. And it was really about starting with, again, that self-love, because that was my journey that I was on at the time. And I knew that what I had already been through, I could help women with at least what I had gone through, even if it was just a few steps after, you know? Um, and so that was really a powerful moment for me. And teaching also teaches me more. When
Mhm.
I'm helping other people and sharing and channeling through whatever's happening, I'm like, oh, yeah, there's a thing right there. Like it's a cool process of staying open-minded and remembering, again, we don't know everything ever, ever. And so we can even learn from hearing ourselves say something that we didn't know we were going to say, or you might be hearing someone saying the same thing you've heard a million times, but you hear it a little differently that time. Or something sinks in a little deeper. And so that's been my experience with coaching, is that there's always something I can learn. There's always a golden nugget. There's always something deeper that's beautiful. And it's a process of knowing, like, instead of saying, oh, I know that, oh, I know this, it's like, oh, I'm curious, like, what else is here? You know, it's a different way of thinking about it, and not shutting down your mind of like, oh, I know, because I had that process too. When, I'll be honest, when I first started coaching, and then I'd be talking to a friend or another coach, and they're telling me something like, oh, I know that, you know, and not in a mean way, but I didn't want to sound stupid, because I'm like, well, duh, I want them to know that I know this. And that, like, sometimes it's harder to remember that when it's your own stuff, right? But then I realized, oh, that's just my ego being like, I want them to know that I know, even though what they're saying is helpful, but I want them to know I know it, you know, like, um, and so it was interesting, and just learning that over the years of like, oh, I don't have to say that. I don't have to prove myself. I don't have to feel like an imposter. Like, if I'm being myself, how could I be an imposter? You know? And I started realizing also that was kind of selfish thinking. Like, I was so worried about how someone would perceive me as a coach, that I wasn't thinking of like, I'm here for this person, and that's who I get to choose to think about right now, you know. And that's been a process, been a journey. It's still an ever growing thing. Like, there's still moments I catch myself doing things where I'm like, oh crap, like I gotta go back and gotta go back and look at that again, or I gotta go a little deeper into this. Um and I do it like, it's very humbling. It's being a coach, I feel like, to be a true centered, grounded, safe space for people. I feel like it's that humbleness. Like, you can know your power and own your power, and know that you have so much to give, and also be humble in that you don't know what's best for every person. Like, it's so important to help them see that for themselves. And that's been a huge thing, that I feel like is so important for any kind of person that wants to do coaching to know, is to stay humble and grounded, and know that you don't have all the answers for this person. You're just there to help them see the answers. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's so important and way more healing whenever they can get there more on their own, even if it's just a little nudge.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why because I study psychology, that's my major, but I I love the spiritual component of what we do, and I love that you mentioned channeling daring as well, because it just it takes it to a whole new level, and it makes it so much more personable and authentic, I think. And you can get so much more out of it, even as the facilitator. And that's something that you don't really get in traditional therapy. It's missing a lot of that. It's very clinical, very by the book. And so I think doing the more somatic coaching, or all the different styles that um, we that sounds kind of cocky, but you know what I mean. That the alternative methods can be so beneficial, and also
Yeah.
a lot more fun, and also brings in so many different angles. It's not just about trauma every single time
Yeah.
and shadow work every single time. And you can come in and say, today I need to have an easier time with my coaching.
Mm.
And so you can talk about your sexuality and that
Yeah.
that can end up being a little bit of a lighter subject. So I love that as well. Do you offer coaching for just women? Do you do couples? Do you do everybody that wants coaching? And do you have a preference?
Yeah. Um, I've always worked with women. And that's like what my call has been. And it's interesting because I've gotten asked that so many times, like, do you do work with men though? Or what about with couples or these things? And, I've had different astrology readings and reading and different kind of readings in that realm, but they're like, working with relationships would be really good for like your expansiveness, because I like to do different things. I don't like to stay in one thing forever. And so I have been interested in working more along with couples, and I would like to do that more often. So yeah, that's something that's definitely on the horizon. It just it's not here yet. And which is exciting because I actually, one of the um, parts that I chose for our extension of this program that we're in, is I knew from the very beginning tantric sex was one of them I was going to do, and I just picked that and got that all finalized, which I'm excited about. So that will start to open those doors a little bit more with couples, which I'm excited for that. Um, and then eventually I want to do the relationship transformation, because I feel like that would be really powerful. So it is something I'm interested in. But yeah, right now it's mostly like what I know the realm of, and what I feel confident is doing is working with women. Um, and like being in that space until that expansion opens for me to be like, okay, now I feel like now's the time I could work with couples. Now's the time I can do this work and know that I have more knowledge about how to help them specifically. So yeah.
That's great. I
Yeah.
also want those as my extra courses.
Awesome.
Have you heard of Margot Anand?
That name sounds so familiar. I feel like someone said it to me the other day.
She's a tantra teacher, and she has some really good books out there if you want to check her out.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's great. She was one of uh, I don't remember how many years ago I found one of her books, and I was like, yes, I knew I loved tantra.
Yes. I'm very excited about this.
Yeah, she's great, and um, it's also very interesting to hear her experience because she kind of shed some light on how sometimes it's not always safe um,
Mm,
to go into the work. Like you really have to be careful with who you work with,
yeah.
and uh, especially when you start getting into spirituality, sexuality, plant medicines, like you have to know that they're safe. And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the great things that everyone in our program is, they've all been so safe. And
Mm,
I think that's been amazing. And it's also really shown how it's mostly women doing the work because I
yeah.
haven't heard any of us being able to really coach a lot of men. And you don't really hear about a lot of men doing practices, or some are starting to go to therapy more, but doing the more spiritual side of things, that seems like it's a lot less often. And I haven't got the chance to work with a man either. And I would like to.
Yeah.
I would love to work with couples as well, but I haven't got to do that either because again, like, where's the men? Like, when are they going to show up? When are they going to put in the work?
Yes. I love that you brought this up, because I've actually had a few conversations about this recently, and more specifically again with my friend Haley. Like she's like the one I refer to a lot. But we were just talking about with men in our lives, and how like they're willing to do some things, but they're so used to what like they've, quote, been trained to do, which is provide and work and do the physical things, and like be so just like go, 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 warrior energy. And that's like some of their conditioning, which on the one hand, it's so beautiful. And I'm so grateful for the men who can access this side of themselves. And I feel like they are desiring, there is a call for them to go more in depth into these things, but it so feels out of their realm that it's like the feeling of, oh, but if I'm not going to do well, then I'm going to feel like a failure and I'm not a good enough man. And I feel like that's something that's so huge, and that might be a big thing that kind of holds them back a little bit, is like, well, that's something I don't know. So if I mess up, I'm no longer like the hero. I'm no longer the protector, the provider. I'm not manly enough. Like, all of these conditionings that can be happening for them, and that we know in our own lives and the people that we know, that is a truth. And it's like sending so much love and compassion to that, of like, I feel like, and my friend and multiple women that I know feel like that's so manly, to be able to admit, like, I don't actually know how to do this. Like, I don't know, like, being able to admit and come forward with that. I think that's so fucking sexy,
Oh yeah.
because I'm like, okay, then let's do this. Like, let's go into this. Um, and I feel like it's so powerful. Like, that's such a, like, if they want to be manly, like, I feel like that is manly to me. Like, that's attractive to me, of not being like, I have to know everything and I have to get it right, or I'm wrong, so I'm just not going to do it. And I'm like, no, I want to see you share what you're feeling emotionally. I want you to open. I want to like see that, your admittance of maybe not knowing how to do something, but your willingness to do it, like, so attractive. And I know many, many, many women who feel the same way. So it's like getting that out there more. Like, maybe the more that they can see that and actually experience that, um, and feel that safety with women around them, that it will start to open more. And, it might take a long time, because so ingrained, as we know, with a lot of things, we feel like shame and not being good enough in these things. Um, but it'll happen. Like, I know it will. I feel it. So it's just like, how can we keep doing that, pouring love into them, pouring compassion, and being in this space where they feel like, oh, okay, maybe it is safe for me to, like, maybe just admit it a little bit, but I don't know, or maybe just a little bit do this, and kind of getting their foot in the door.
Yes, and I fully agree. And as a matter of fact, I don't know of any woman that wouldn't celebrate a man like putting in the work and showing up and getting into, because like it's a natural thing for women to be like the oracle and the spiritual leader. Like that's actually the natural route.
I get that.
So to allow a woman to lead a man in that container is natural. And obviously, when it's a group of other men and they're all already doing that spiritual practice, that is phenomenal. And we definitely need more of that as well. But we still need, hopefully, men will understand that if a woman is leading you into a container where you can go there and reach into your traumas and your conditioning and your sexuality and all of the things like that, makes you so much more masculine, and that masculinity, the divine masculine, is going to blossom, and that's going to be so magnetic to women that are at a high like spiritual level. uh so I don't think they understand like how much more power they will hold as a man if they really put in the work, because it's going to make a woman feel more safe, it's going to make her feel more secure, and it's really going to completely change the dynamic of a relationship when both people are really putting in the work. And I've noticed that one of a really fun way to get a man started in some of the work is sex magic. They're usually more open to do that. It's like, see how awesome and fun that was? Now, can we do this other practice?
I love that. And so true.
I
They're
mean, you
like,
got
okay.
like, wait, that's what we get to have? Okay. Maybe. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's really, society has done everyone so dirty with our social conditioning. And um I I get a little sometimes I kind of shit post about like the bad sides of masculinity and femininity and all that, because I'm gonna call it out because it needs to be. But all that good side, like, that needs to go out as well. We need to let them know, like, that locker talk is so gone. We're outdated with that. If you're talking about how much you value each other, that's sexy.
Mhm.
That is what people are gonna really be drawn to and love, when you know that you can hold each other and really just fully go there. Otherwise, you're just having this surface level, like, what is that? What is a surface level relationship? Does that really mean much? And so when women start going there and their man doesn't, they usually divide, and that's when they realize that there's not that deepness to the relationship. So she ends up going to someone that is on that deeper level, and he stays with someone that's surface. And it
Mhm.
becomes this vicious cycle. But unfortunately, one of the things that men are conditioned, just for example, like the athletic male, it's like you have to get it right immediately. You have to be the best. You have to be tough. You have to like hold everything else in and just be ultra masculine. And that to them is ultra masculine, is holding in everything except anger and lust. Otherwise, it's not masculine enough. And I have to be the best immediately. So getting into these, this like the coaching kind of containers and allowing that to happen, it really breaks down all of that conditioning and all the walls. And I'm sure it's kind of scary. And especially to do that with a woman. And I just wish that there was a way that we could show them that that's the place to be. And it's really going to fully open up their masculinity. And it's not going to be that social conditioning that has broken them down. And then we can really fully celebrate the masculine. And yeah, so I hope that we can pull it out there more, and they'll start coming in a little more with that container of like, yes, this is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you because it's like, see them being able to see that example and seeing like, oh, it's not gonna make me like too feminine. I'm not gonna be masculine enough. You're trying to turn me into a woman. It's like, no,
No,
no.
no. If we wanted that, we would date the women,
I
you know.
know, for real. Like, hello. And so it's so interesting. Like, I just like we're talking about just the conditioning with that and how they have to be ultra all the time or else it's not good enough and women aren't going to appreciate that. And it's like there's so many more examples right now of women who are wanting those relationships with the men who can hold them emotionally, who can truly hold them emotionally. And in my opinion, I can't say that this is fact, my opinion is that if a man can't hold himself emotionally, if he shames emotions, if he thinks it's like, oh, that's a woman thing, then he can't truly hold a woman when she is feeling that. And there's so much of the of too, like women will say one thing, like when a woman says fine, she really means this. When a woman says okay, she really means this, which is such a little thing, right? But I feel like that's been very detrimental because that's someone who's playing games. Now, if you have a mature relationship, someone who is actually expressing, or maybe they're afraid, like I guess I shouldn't say mature because sometimes it's really hard to express yourself because you don't know what's going to happen. So let me just backtrack and say those teachings are detrimental because it's like when a woman actually does share what she's feeling, the man in his brain is going to those things and thinking, oh, she must not actually mean it this way. I've got to read between the lines. It's like, no, actually listen to what she's saying. Like, this is what she's asking. This is what she's desiring. Listen to those words. And so I feel like that's been not good as well of that conditioning. And then like, oh, women are just emotional, they're crazy, like they're this, they're that, they're just gonna be this way. And so then again, if a woman's emotional, they're just like, oh, it's one of her things, it'll pass. It's like, no, how can you come closer to her? How can you go towards her? How can you hold her? How can you ask her, like, what can I do for you right now? And not have to understand why she's having these emotions, just be able to hold her because she's having an emotion. And that can that can start to happen, and you can start to shift those patterns. And to go even deeper, like you've got to be able to know that emotions are okay for yourself, so that you can know, like, okay, like now when I hold her, she can feel like she melts into me. She feels that I'm truly here. And so it's just this process of learning and shifting and not getting overwhelmed by, like, I've got to know everything now. Just like, what can I do right now in this moment? I can hug her. I can rub her feet. You know, something that, just ask her for something small in that moment, and that will start to build, and it'll start to create more of that connection. I feel like even that would be healing, even more healing for men too, for women of being held to be healing, and for men healing of like, oh, I don't have to like go to war to prove to her that I love her. I can right now give her a hug because she's feeling something deep. So it's like this extreme, you know, like I'll do this, I'll battle, I'll be a warrior. And I'm like, no, but what about in the everyday? Like, you're not going to war for me today. Like, what could you do for me today? You know? And so that's something that could start to shift that as well. It's just, what are those little steps you can take in those moments that can bring you closer?
Absolutely. And that is when having a mediator becomes so helpful whenever you
Mhm.
have a coach or someone that can sit with both parties. So those conversations can happen. And if there needs to be some sort of translation, then the mediator can do that. Because I've noticed a lot of times men just go straight to defense mode. They're like, "What do you mean I'm not perfect? I have to be perfect. I'm the man." And she's like, "What? I'm saying I need you to help me with the dishes here. What do you mean?" And unfortunately, a lot of times when it's not done in a very brush off or manipulative way, when she says I'm fine, if she's not sharing, then maybe she doesn't feel safe to share. Maybe she has shared and he didn't listen and was dismissive. So that's why this work is so important for couples and people who are single and just want a relationship. I think it can be so, so helpful because our conditioning is garbage. It's really, it pulls people apart and pins everyone against each other. And I wish people understood the value that they can bring to the world just by working on themselves and just by showing up authentically. Because if they take that mask off, everybody is going to be better off. I mean, even just even just for toxic relationships, if they were authentic from day one, instead of like easing them into their manipulation tactics, and then you're in love and you're intertwined, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, they're actually a monster. Then if they just were honest from day one, and unfortunately, anybody who's dealt with those types of dynamics, that's a trigger point. So anytime someone they realize there's not something fully authentic, they're gonna think it's extreme. And so even if it's not, they don't mean it that way, it's gonna be a trigger point because anybody who's gone through a toxic relationship is so damaging. And one little potential red flag even is so scary because they don't want to go through that again. And yeah, so anyway, I hope that more people get into the work and find the aspects that they really enjoy. So if they hate this somatic work, then they'll try something else first or
Mhm.
kind of ease into it because I think a lot of people seem to think that you just have to like dive in immediately and it's going to be overwhelming. And that's not necessarily the case unless they've been doing the work and that's where they want to start.
Yeah. No, I
But
totally agree. Yeah, because when I just like, on a quick note of that, like the overwhelming parts, when I first started going to these different events and stuff, I was trying to do all the steps they told me, like all at once. And like I had these checklists that were like 10 things in the morning, 10 things in the evening, 10 things in the afternoon. And I was doing that, but then I noticed like it felt good at first because it was a little bit of a shift, but it became very overwhelming because I was like, now it just feels like a checklist, like I'm just going through the motions. And so I love how you said that. Like it's not the diving in, it's not going in and being overwhelmed. It's just like one step at a time. And once you feel like that's really integrated and embedded and feels really good, then maybe bring something else in with it. Um, that way you're just moving forward, because moving forward even a little bit is still moving forward.
Mhm.
So yeah, I want to share that experience I've had before after you said that.
Yeah. And well, sometimes going deep into the expansion is going to take you deep into a contraction. So there's also being that having that self-awareness of knowing where that line is and when you're starting to cross it and being able
Yeah.
to really respect your own boundaries. And for some people, even creating boundaries is a whole new thing, and that's so scary. And what if people are going to hate me and reject me and I'll have no one, and I can't say no, and I can't not do all the things, and
Mhm.
from, step 1 through 10 exactly as it's meant to be. And then I'm not doing it good enough. And yeah, so it can be scary and overwhelming, but they're not really supposed to be hard roles.
Yeah.
And that is definitely something that is easy to fall into with the practices and learning new things, because you want to be the good student and you
Mhm.
want to be everything just right. But we also have very busy lives and a lot going on, and it's not that simple. But I think everybody probably has been there at some point where you're trying so hard and realize you hit that wall and have to take that step back.
Yes, absolutely. And like, there's gonna be, like, as you said, there's like the too much, like going in too much in the contraction. And then there's the like you said, it's like finding that happy medium of how much can you go in and like lean in just a little bit more, but then allow yourself to like go back and forth between that until it can stretch a little further. And go back and forth until it can stretch a little further. Just really honoring that for yourself. The whole Literally, I feel like the whole thing with um, learning from someone else and being in a container with someone and with a coach or whatever that might be for you is just like that honoring, like learning to just honor yourself, learning that to trust yourself and to, um, yeah, just though I feel like that's like the overall, because when you're doing that, like so many other things just start to become more in alignment because you know you and what you need and what you desire, and you are following that and trusting that. And I feel like that's the core of it, you know?
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, yeah.
I've noticed that one of the other things that is very common with women is holding in rage. And that's one of the things that I love about facilitating, is allowing them to just fully go there. And it's really safe, but they can really go in and they can just beat the crap out of a pillow and yell if they have to. And then it's so freeing. I have not noticed yet one woman that didn't find it so freeing to just allow their rage to just be fully felt and let loose. And it's amazing. Um, and it's nice to have that facilitator to say, "Hey, it's okay. Yes, beat the pillow. You're doing so good."
Yes, that uber encouragement. Yeah, it's so true. Our throat chakra is like one of the ones that gets locked up the most because it's like, gotta be good, gotta be nice, gotta be quiet, gotta be calm, gotta be
Got to be
centered, gotta be,
agreeable.
well, yeah, like all
Yeah,
these things. Like, and so, yeah, really allowing that to just like, so come out. It's like,
it's so
ah,
primal.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Feels
love it.
amazing.
Yes. And one of my favorite outlets is MMA. I haven't been able to do it in a while because it's expensive and it's time consuming, but I love it. And that's one of the ways that you can just be in such a bad mood and then you go in and like basically get your butt kicked and it's hard and you get, all you just it's so much fun though. And it's such a good way to let it all out. Um, and so even if that's where people start, it doesn't have to be necessarily in a practice if you're not comfortable starting there, but finding a healthy ways to get it out is so important. A rage room. Um, I mean, there's just endless possibilities on it being a healthy modality. And I think men definitely need to do it in a more healthy route as well. But women are just taught to hold it in, and it does so much damage. But once she starts to free that, and it'll uncover a lot. It'll uncover a lot of stuff that she probably didn't even realize was there. And um so one of my experiences at the retreat that was so much fun was in one of the practices. It I had I just needed to scream because I wanted to do it for so long and I just never did. I was like, nope, I don't have the place for it. I don't want to scare any neighbors. I can't go outside. Somebody will think I'm being kidnapped. So I can't just yell. And during that time, I was like, "I'm scared. There's people around me." And so I asked the 2 women that were with me, I was like, "Can you just yell with me?" And they're like, "Yes, let's do it." I was like, "Yes, let's do it." And we just screamed, and it felt so good that we did it like 3 more times, and it was just amazing. I was just giggling like a child and so happy to just let that out,
Hmm.
and it just so sometimes you have to have somebody else to just do it with you and then realize, okay, okay, we're good. Nothing happened. I just feel good.
Yeah, I love that so much. Asking for what you needed and like having that support system around you. That's so beautiful. And I know so many women are craving that. Like they're craving that, being able to just be like, hey, like, you want to do this together? Or like, hey,
Yeah.
you want to try this out with me? I actually just got back from hosting a retreat and we did some incredible processes. And afterwards, they were just like, so, like I want to do this like every month or even every week. Like I just like it was such this release and this opening for them to be like, oh, that felt really good. Like
Yeah.
but just being able to be in a process like that where oh, everyone just did it. And even I was really, I knew that was one of the processes I wanted to lead the most. But then the day came and I was like, well, crap. What if they're like, what are we doing? You know, like, so all the nervousness came up. And I was like, no, I'm having this feeling for a reason. And so we did it. And I led them through this beautiful process. And every single one of them went full out. There was one woman who had to step aside a little bit because she got a little dizzy. But she went in the most that she could, you know. So it was like, oh, okay, like they're going for it. Like it was just
Yeah.
so cool to watch and be like, okay, I knew it. Like I know more women want this. So it's just like getting out of my own way, even still, of like, oh, but are they really? Because then like you see it and you're like, oh, yeah, they really like it's so powerful. I love it.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's hard to describe how it feels whenever you're doing the practices in a group setting like that, because sometimes even like everybody's a little nervous at first, a little shy, a little like don't know what to expect. And then you kind of ease into it. And then by the end of it, you're just fully there and fully in it. And it's
Mhm.
so powerful.
Yeah,
I
it
want to,
unlocks.
yes. And it really shows how much we need community. We need to have that space where we can all come together and just release and
Yes.
or celebrate and share and go through whatever needs to come up at that moment, and doing the sex magic together is also a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So it's just there's so many different ways and different practices that it's really endless, and it's great that people can go to what they're drawn to, but also pick ones that are out of your comfort zone. And as long as you know the person's safe, obviously.
Yes.
That's very
Big,
important.
big green flags.
Right.
Green flags.
Right. I have not gotten the chance to facilitate an in-person group, and I wanna do it so bad. It's
Yeah.
definitely on my list of things to start doing, but
Yeah.
do you mind kinda going into that process of, um, I don't know, like, what you like about it the most and what really drew you to it, and what is your do you have any next goals for another kind of
Yeah.
retreat or something?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually host monthly coven circles that are
Oh.
in person, and I love that. And I wanted to do that for a really long time. Like I wanted to host women's circles every month. I wasn't sure like exactly how, but started doing it and I'm loving it. I've actually been hosting retreats and events since I started coaching. And like 2017 or 2018 was when I hosted my first like 2 day event. And then it just progressed into retreats. Retreats I've always known I wanted to do, like always. And so I did a retreat a few years ago that was just a couple days. Last year was my first one that was like 3.5 days. And then this year was 4.5 days. So it's just getting a little bit longer. My goal is destination retreats, but in person is just like that's where I thrive the most. I love holding space in person and being able to progress to different pieces. There's just such a magic to that. And yeah, so before, when I first started, my first retreat that I held, it was like, I knew some different processes, some energy work, some mindset work and things like that. Um, and then last year, I was like, I want to get more into like sensuality and going into like the tapping into that. And so that's what we did. And then I started this program and I'm like, oh, now I have some more things I'm wanting to like go even deeper. And so, um, yeah, I just like now it's coming more into what I've really, really been desiring with retreats of getting women to like tap into that deep, deep part of themselves. And now I feel like just having even more tools that really relate more with what I love and what is very expansive. Like last year, I loved the retreat. I loved what we did. It was very beautiful. This year was like, oh, okay, now I'm getting into the stuff where I'm like, these are the kind of retreats I want to host. These are the kind of things I want to do. So yeah, it's just progressed over the years and been really, really beautiful. And like I said, the coven circles in person have been so fun. Like, I think it was last week we did like a shadow work one. We danced with our shadows on the wall, and I had someone come teach goddess yoga. And yeah, it's been really beautiful. So that's definitely where I love to be, is those in-person experiences. Yeah. It's like timeline jumping. I feel like you get in person and you're like jumping timelines. And I actually did a one-on-one VIP retreat with one of my clients in over the summer. And when she's like, it feels like I just did 5 years of therapy in 2 days. Like just this yeah, it's hard to explain in words. I know you know what I'm saying, but like it's just like you're going to different timelines every time. And there's definitely it's very important to integrate and like be able to reintegrate into life, because going back in, it's like, oh, you're gonna have these different experiences. How can you keep holding that power and holding these pieces? And so it's not like you're all of a sudden healed, like, oh, like, I'm great. It's just, oh, now you have these tools and you've had these experiences where you have unraveled layers, and the things that you can tap into, and then it becomes a self practice of sticking with those things. So yeah, I love them.
Yeah, I think they are very, very powerful. I love that you are offering that because it's super important, and I'm sure everyone that participates just falls in love
Yeah.
and probably doesn't want to ever stop.
Yeah, it's been really cool to see like what they've been sharing, and just like checking in with them and what they're doing. And I'm like, oh my God, it like brings so much like yumminess into my body.
Yes. And I love that you're so open as the facilitator as well, and that you are such a curious person to continue to learn instead of just being like, well, I learned some stuff and that's that.
Yeah. So now I know everything.
Right. Yeah. Even if it's
Yeah.
stuff that I've already learned before, I'm still like, maybe I'll figure something else out here. And I try to remain curious as well. Especially if you can get into like more advanced. And I think being in person is it can feel more advanced a lot of times because it's different. It's so different and it's beautiful. I think the biggest thing is having that community, just everybody going through it together is
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh yeah, it was incredible. Even like seeing in one of the experiences, like I told them too in this process that we were doing some breath work and I was like, I feel like I'm standing in the midst of like Amazonian warrior women. Like it was incredible. And yeah, you're right. It's like going to that deeper level, like even for myself, even if I've done a practice 10 times or more, there's like something else comes through, or something else happens for myself specifically. I'm doing these self practices, or someone else is taking me through a practice. It's like, whoa, like that just got even deeper. And it's like taking you to next levels of deepness and understanding and really embodying what you're teaching and what you're learning. And like you said, not just doing 3 practices and being like, okay, well, I'm a master at this now. Like, yeah, I can maybe facilitate it, but I'm not a master at it. I get to keep going deeper and it's beautiful. And I think that's again, that's the humble part. Like, I'm never gonna know everything. I'm always gonna have like a next level of whoa, you
Yeah.
know? So yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I think that that's one of the ways, the tells of people that are doing it as a money grab. They'll
Mm.
just do like a quick little Google search on something or a quick little thing, and then they're suddenly selling courses on it. And then you're like, wait a minute, I think you skipped a lot of steps.
Like I'm still having to do a lot of this for myself. Um, I also just like even on that note too, that just popped in when you said that of even if you're working with a coach, it's still like s- taking self-responsibility for your own practice and journey as well. Of like, it's a coach is not there to like handhold you and carry you through. They're there and or guides or whatever it is, they're there to um, help to show you some different tools, help to be there and hold space as you come to your own answers and your own experiences. And it's your responsibility to continue doing those practices. And I feel like a lot of times I'm talking to coaches out there and different people, we feel like, oh, I've got to like now make sure they're getting transformation. So I've got to like make sure they're doing every step. It's like, no, you get to show up and be in this place and hold this space. And then they get to take the next action if they want to, because if they can't do it in a coaching container, they're not going to do it on their own either. So they have to learn within that space that they're still like, it's not a reminder every day, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? It's like, okay, here's what I'm going to have you do before our next call. And then you leave it to them to do that and to step into that. And that will also rewire neural pathways, I believe, in their life. Like after they're out of your container, they will then have more self responsibility and moving forward and like creating more transformation in their life without being handheld through life. That makes sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I
Yeah.
fully agree because having that accountability is so important. And it's also going to make them stronger and
Mhm.
more trusting of themselves because they'll realize that they did it. They did it. And they really just had guidance, but they did the work.
Yeah.
And it's so important. And the accountability of not self-blame, but just when it comes to those moments as well, because there's the accountability of doing the work on your own, but then there's also the accountability of my choices are my own. And so I have to put in the work and I have to face what I accepted. And that's a grieving process too, because we really realize like you grieve who you could have been,
Mm.
and you grieve who you were, and there's a grieving process in a lot of things, especially when it comes to trauma or shame or guilt or any of the really heavy stuff, and trying to take that kind of accountability without blaming yourself and feeling shame for it having happened. It's like it's a human experience. Like we're gonna make mistakes. We're not supposed to know everything, and we're all going through difficulty at some point. Some people have trauma their whole life, and it really does wire you differently. But once you start to come out of that, once you start healing, it really does rewire everything. And I love that you mentioned that because it's important and so true. I think that's one of the reasons why it's so good that we do everything as an invitation. We never command anybody to do anything. We just invite them to do it. Like, and they can also let us know if that feels right for them, or if in that moment they're, oh, I'm feeling so much resistance to that it's really freaking me out. and
Yeah.
and there wasn't any forcing them into it. It's okay, we're gonna take a step back then. Thank you for letting me know. And and that's important as well. And I think that this style of coaching is so good because it allows that. It allows the space to go where each individual needs to go. And um, there's something else I wanted to say, but I forgot.
I do that all the time. Like once you're like in the conversation, you're like going and they're like, oh crap, there was one thing, but it's like other things came through
Yeah.
at the same time. But that was all very beautiful, like, and so true. So, so true. And I love that you shared that. And yeah, it's just an important reminder for all of us, like especially if you're a coach that has such a big empathetic, like loving heart, empathic, there we go, empathic, loving heart. It's hard to not want to make sure, like, of course you want to do what you can and your capacity and what you've committed to. You don't like, oh, I'm just gonna like whatever, it's like you're doing what you committed to. And knowing and being like, okay, well, if they're not doing the work, I can't take that on for myself. Like that gets to be something that we let go of. And that's taken me a long time. And even still it pops up for me at different times, like, oh crap, they're not doing the work. What does that mean about me? I'm like, it doesn't mean anything about me. It means they're
They're
not
not
doing it.
ready.
Yeah. And so important. And then, yeah, like you said, the allowing that space and these people, like clients, like if you're people who are working with coaches, if your coach is like trying to force you or push you into something or say, well, what does that mean about you? If you're feeling that way about like, all of these like I like to call it spiritual bypassing.
Yes.
Or it's like not taking the responsibility and like keep turning it around on you. That's probably not the best coach for you.
No.
It's so important to work with someone who honors what you're feeling and not like going into story and victim,
Mhm.
like being able to validate like what you've been through and acknowledging that and being there for you in that. And also, um, bringing you into a space of like, okay, so what can we work with? What are the feelings in your body? What can we start with to help you to start moving through this? Not just pretty minds, pretty affirmations that you blanket over it. And then later you're wondering like, oh, like I've said this affirmation all day and I'm still really like, at first it felt good. And now I'm like, it's like, you're putting a cover over it. Like, oh, just push your way through it, like push your way out of there. And it's a lot of force rather than feel. And that's so important. And I feel like more and more people are realizing that. But we do live in a world where it's pushing through, warrior through.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And it's exhausting.
Yeah. Definitely way more exhausting.
Yeah. That is an excellent point. I'm glad that you brought that up because it's like if you're gaslighting yourself, you're not helping yourself.
Mhm.
And that is actually going to be a trigger for people that have been gaslit a lot. They're like, oh, I don't feel that, so I can't fake it. It's like
Yeah.
Yeah, spiritual bypassing, any kind of bypassing has been pretty damaging to like there are people that are genuinely very positive people and I love that for them, but they're not going to align with that person that isn't that way. Like the person that's been through a lot of trauma and been through a lot of hardships, if they're just getting those affirmations of like, no, it's cupcakes and rainbows, they're gonna be like, what do you mean cupcakes
Yeah.
and rainbows? Where?
Where do I find this?
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
I
I
can't.
love that. I love it because yeah, it is like there's such a I shared something on this a while ago and I can't remember exactly how I said it, but basically, like in essence, it was a feeling I was having of like um the discluding, like, oh, you can't be in our group because you're not positive vibes only.
Mhm.
Or, and that's so disclusive. Like you think you're being like, oh, like bringing people in. It's like, yeah, but someone who doesn't feel positive all the time is going to be like, well, I guess I don't belong. Or they're going to be very inauthentic to who they are and fake and they're going to be hurting on the inside because they want to hang out with these people, but like they're not always positive and always like in this space. Like they have things that come up, and every single person does. Whoever says they don't, again, they're lying. Like it's, I think that's a form of spiritual bypassing is positive vibes only. I'm not saying like go surround yourself and stay in situations that are toxic. Um, in the real sense, not just like the toxic word everybody just throws out nowadays. Like, oh, this person said this, so they're toxic. Like, no, I'm
Right.
talking about actually toxic, like actually hurtful, not a good situation to be in. Those are not the situations I'm saying like, oh, like go put yourself in that. But if there are people that you genuinely connect with and it feels good to be around them, you feel uplifted around them, you feel lit up or supported around them. Like being able to be in that space together without feeling like you have to fake it till you make it. Being able to actually be heard in what you're feeling and experiencing, and stopping with the disclusivity of positive vibes only, because
Mhm.
that's just not real. Like you're gonna have other thoughts. Um, and yeah, or like if, yeah, whoever's listening, I'm sure you're gonna get this because you've been drawn to the video for a reason. So regardless of all of that, just being so aware of how you might be discluding people by using verbiage like that. Um, because everybody's at a different place in their life, and they're it's good they're going to be like, well, I guess I can't even try them because these people in this group that is like all high vibe and like doing these things, they're not going to want me around because every now and then I think about how crappy something is, like, it's, I know I went around in a lot of ways there, but I hope it made sense.
It does. It does.
Okay. Okay.
I fully agree. And I think it's so important to bring this up because the spiritual community in particular is really bad about that, bad about just be positive all the time. And if you're not high vibe, then what are you even doing with your life? You're not spiritual. It's like you must be new here. Like you're showing how new you are to this process.
Yeah. You're like, have you gone to the depths? Like, have you
Right?
seen what's under there?
Yeah. Are you even looking at the state of the world right now? Like
Yeah.
where is all this positivity?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's just, it's a process. Like we get there in our own time. And
Yes.
um I'm one of those people that I have a positive outlook on life. Like I see the beauty, I see the potential, I see these things. And there are days where I just want to sit and binge watch a show because I'm feeling like crap. Like, it's gonna happen.
It's both.
So, yeah, it's both. So no shaming yourself for having both.
Right. And you should always go where you feel welcome.
Yeah,
And even if in the beginning you're just uncomfortable, that's different than feeling unwelcome there.
yeah,
And
yes.
I've noticed that there are a lot of people that have that religious trauma that they'll come in feeling very shy and unknown and But then it turns out that they never felt welcomed in those spaces.
Yeah.
And so they're holding a lot of that within themselves where, oh, that didn't feel good because that didn't align with me at all. But I felt like I had to show up a certain way. I had to be that virginal good girl that just was super agreeable and was basically a slave and, domesticated when she's just like, you know what? I want to be feral. I want to
Yeah.
be I want to be feral. I want to be in a great relationship, but where we can just run wild together. And
Yeah.
so it's nice to be able to figure out your truth. And sometimes you take it too far, but
Yeah.
then you realize and you that's one of the good things about kind of pushing boundaries is you will get to a point where you realize what those boundaries actually are. And it's okay if you go a little too far and then you're like, wait a minute, I actually
Yeah.
don't like that, especially when you're figuring things out in the beginning. Um, but that's something else when it comes to this work is you have to be open and ready to follow your own truth and figure out what your boundaries are and set boundaries because so many people are people pleasers and they don't know how to say no and it's so scary and it makes them feel really vulnerable to be able to set up a boundary. They don't want to be the bad guy,
Mhm.
but it's not being mean to say I can't go there today. I don't
Yeah.
actually feel that today.
Yeah.
And also, some people, as part of the accountability, some people look at the pricing of coaches because there's no insurance involved. And
Mhm.
the more you know, probably the higher price it's going to be because we spend thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours on this work. And uh, we would be doing ourselves a huge disservice to be like $20 a pop.
Yeah.
And and who there's people are going to fully take advantage of that. They're not going to be as accountable as if you like really set something up. So I just want to throw that out there real quick. Anybody that looks at the price and says he okay. But there's reasons
Yeah.
for that. There's reasons
Mhm.
for that. And part of it is holding that accountability for like I'm committing fully into this process.
Yeah.
And and so when you have someone that's willing to help you figure out what your boundaries are, help you go there and it's all just like, all right, today I'm going to invite you to stop being such a good girl. And like, where's that rage in you? Like, where do you feel it in your body?
Yeah.
What does that look like? And
Yeah.
I love those processes. I love being able to just really go there with somebody
Yeah.
and watch how they blossom because they really do and it's so beautiful. And even with sexuality, a lot of women hold so much shame in there and so much trauma and a lot of like the majority of women are not sexually satisfied, whether they're partnered up or not. And a lot of women feel very used because they don't get their pleasure. They don't have any pleasure. They just want to get it over with because it's not good for them. And that's a problem too. That is really great about this kind of coaching is to teach your pleasure is important. And if you get to work with the couple, then you get to teach them ways where to get to where it is actually satisfying for both.
Mhm.
And it's not just, well, I need to get it over with because I'm not going to get there anyway. So let me just fake it and be done. Like, that's not, if he's a good man, that's not fun for him either. Or your partner. Like, if your partner, it, like, they wouldn't be a good partner if they were okay with that.
They're like, oh, okay, we're good. No, I've heard that from different clients as well. Like it has felt like work. Like it just feels like a job. Like I don't want to do it. Um, which sucks because when you have that connection, you experience that, there's no way it's gonna feel like a job.
Right?
So it's like, yeah, getting to that place where it's like, yeah, where like let's discover what's your pleasure. Let's discover how you feel good. Let's practice that for yourself. And then you can teach your partner. Like
Mm-hmm.
be like, here's what I like. Like that's
Yes.
the first step. Is like, what do you like?
Mm-hmm.
And not a lot of women know that. And I didn't know that. I had no idea what I liked. Like it was a process of figuring that out, being like, what even do I like? Like it was just this, oh, you have sex and it's this, and you know, sometimes it feels good and sometimes it doesn't. And um not until I started really discovering that for myself that I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is what I like. And it's really beautiful because my partner now, we've been together since 2017, and just barely got married last year, but just we've been living together for a long time. And he was a pivotal part of that healing journey for me. I was already starting to discover different pieces of myself and like tapping into that, saying yes to myself more often. But sexually, he was such a pivotal healing person for me because he's so tapped into like he is sexual. Like he's just like very, he's very giving in it. He's like, he knows my body. He very energetically is like very tuned in. And there's definitely depths that I am excited to get deeper into going to this tantric sex major. Because I'm like, I know there's some deeper levels that we can get to here. But from the beginning, he's like just very like in tune with me. And even still, like I got even more brave to be like, ooh, I like when you do this, or I would like you to try this. And so sometimes like, you know, those things are like, yeah, can't be in a relationship till you have this for yourself or you love yourself fully. I'm like,
Mm,
that's
that's not
not true
true.
either. Because for me, like he was such a bonus to that. Like, yes, it was my choice and my steps forward of wanting to shift and wanting to do things differently. Um, but him coming into my life was such a beautiful added bonus and um a place for me to land and feel like, oh, like we can grow together, we can heal together. So I've never believed in that, like you have to do this to have this relationship. I'm like, no, because you can help each other with that piece, you know. And that was very, very true for me. So I'm so grateful for that. Um, but yeah, and then yeah, so just discovering more about myself, like, ooh, like now I know what feels phenomenal in my body because now I'm exploring more with my body because I'm not feeling shame about it. And there's still points that I'm still like a little nervous about sexually where I'm like, I don't want to try that quite yet or like that, you know. But there are other parts that I'm very curious about. So it's just, it's a growth, it's process. There's things I'm interested in now that I'm like, well, I would have never said that in the past because I've been like, that's not good to do or say, you know. So it's just a journey, but I wanted to share a couple things about what you said. First off, have you seen the meme that says there's a domestic housewife, but that indicates there must be such thing as a feral housewife, and now I have a new life goal. I'm like, this is my favorite thing
Yeah,
ever.
I'm the
I
feral
loved
side.
it. Same, same. I'm like, I could be both, but I
Yeah.
like the feral side. Domestic, like when my kids are around, obviously. And then the other point you made about the pricing, I had a very hard time with that when I first started coaching. I'm like, oh, I don't want to charge this much. Like, I'll just do this, or I'll do these things for free, or I'll do these things. I was so, so, so afraid. And then someone kind of pointed out to me, they're like, you know, that happens with a lot of energy work, especially women.
Mm-hmm.
Women who are in the energy fields or the coaching fields, they'll charge less because it's like, oh, but I just want to be able to help and I want to be able to do these things and I want to do this and that and the other. And there's also the subconscious thing of like, oh, I can't charge that much because like, how could I charge that much for energy? Like, and there's people that have actually asked people that I know these questions, like, you're doing energy work, how would you charge? Jesus doesn't charge for his energy, you know, like these different things. And my friend was saying, she's like, or someone, whoever was sharing it with me, it was either a story or their story, that like something that they said to someone once was like, well, you wouldn't ask a doctor while why they're charging to do brain surgery, like because it's a natural or a normal education, right? And so it's like they expect those price points. But you don't see men who are coaches doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Men who are coaches like, I'm charging this. And so there's other subconscious levels to that of knowing your worth of charging more. And absolutely, you can have different things that can help. But I'm gonna say this. I'm also very much that way. I'm very empathic. I very much want to help people. And I was burning out so fast because I wanted so bad for everyone to have access that I had no time in my life because I was like giving, 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 giving. And so being able to have that boundary for yourself, like, okay, I'm gonna have these price points, and like, yeah, I'll do a masterclass here or there. I'll do like this lower offer here or there. But looking at the life that you would like to create and that you want to be experiencing and living and the capacity of which you want to help, you've got to have an equal energetic exchange for that, or you're going to burn out and you're going to get resentful to yourself mostly. So it's really important to acknowledge your worth and your value for the knowledge that you have, and being able to create those offers and those price points and those experiences that match that. And the people who really desire that change and who are really willing to do that, they're going to find a way to do it. And not in a way that's like putting people in a bad situation. Like, I definitely know a company that did that. They made promises that they lied about, and they did all these things. And so it put a lot of people in a bad situation, including myself a long time ago. So it's not about that. It's not like, oh, get out a mortgage to do this. It's like, no, let them find a way to pay you that is also not putting them in a bad situation,
Yes.
you know? So I just wanted to comment on those two things that you made. So yeah.
I I fully, fully, fully agree. And sometimes the coach or whoever is going to be willing to barter as well. So sometimes that can be, if you don't have money, but you have something else to offer as an exchange, sometimes that is something that you all can agree on. And that's, I mean, I love a good barter system, and I think it's never going to go out of fashion. We should always keep that as a potential, because there might be some people that are so wanting to do the work, but what they have to offer is something that really aligns with you, and you didn't realize it until you had that conversation that you can just exchange. Like, I've done that with people before as well, and it ended up being amazing. And I love that you brought up how it's particularly women that play it safe, because we we need to learn how to take up space and not apologize for it. And I was listening to I think it was a book or a podcast. I don't remember. It was a while ago, and it was a female speaker, public speaker, and she was saying how she went to this event with other male public speakers. She was like the only woman, and the vendor said, "What are you doing? You did better." Sorry, guys, but she's like, "You did better than the men, and you're charging far less. You need to charge more." And she said it wasn't until that moment that someone else gave her the permission that she realized, I am undervaluing myself. They are asking and not apologizing for it. Why am I? And so sometimes it just takes women to get permission from other women or other people to say, charge what you're worth and don't apologize for it. Take up space and don't apologize for it. Walk in the room and say, I am here. Hi, you're welcome. And be okay with that. And it's not in an egotistical way. Obviously, that's not a good thing. But
Yeah.
just to value your own work. And like you said, like, if you want to be able to pay your bills and that is your job, then that means something. It's If you're running yourself ragged, you're not going to be able to give that energetic exchange that you'll need to be able to give, because you're on burnout, and that's not good for anybody, including yourself or your work. So we can really go further into the work whenever you are able to really give energetically, because if you are just run down, it's not going to feel good, and the work is not going to be good, and then you'll dread it, and and question why you're doing it to begin with, because you want to help, but you don't want to feel like you're taking advantage. And it's a back and forth until you reach that point where you realize, no, I'm showing up. This is what I want. This is my dharma. This is my calling. This is my
Mhm.
thing. And I know it. And I've worked really, really hard to get here. And I've spent a ton of money to get here. The right people are going to come along. And you're all at that point, you also realize that people that were just trying to take advantage fall back, and they
Mhm.
need to fall back because those are not the kind of people that you should be working with anyway. So if anybody's watching this, this is your permission. Take up space, know your worth.
Yes,
Have the
absolutely.
audacity.
Yes, audacity. That was one of my commitments I made to my 8-year-old self in at the retreat. I'm like,
Aw,
look at the audacity we've had to even get to this point. Like how much more audacious can we be? And like
yes.
really go for it and really step in even more. And that was a very pivotal moment for me. Like just looking around, I was looking around the room, just like, oh my gosh, look where we are and look at all the things we've gone through and experienced to be here in this room. So like what else is possible, you know? So that's a really powerful moment for me. Yeah.
Me as well.
Yeah.
I had a question with Layla, and I was asking her about the business stuff. And that was one of my questions. And she said, have the audacity. It's like, oh, like I got goosebumps. Like, why did I need to hear that so badly?
Mm,
Because she is massively successful in her field. And um, so it hits different when it comes from someone that you're learning from, and it's not just you trying to pep talk yourself. And that's why it's so different when someone else gives you that permission. For whatever reason, it hits a little differently because I was still in that mode of, is that too much? Is it
mhm.
not enough? I feel like it's not enough, but I don't know. And so she's like, you need to pay your bills. And I'm like,
Yeah.
have the audacity. And
Mhm,
don't worry about the witch hunt so much. Like, put yourself out there. You'll be fine. And um and that's something else that's hard, is just putting yourself out there. It's so scary to just take that leap of showing up and putting yourself out there. And so having the audacity is something that women in particular need to find. And it definitely helps having other women say, here's your permission. Show up with the audacity and don't apologize for it, because we apologize way too much. It's like, I'm here.
yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry I'm here. What do you
Yeah.
mean? Like,
I'm sorry
welcome.
you ran into me. You know, like someone runs into you, you're like, oh sorry. You're like, wait, I didn't do
Yeah.
that.
Like, we need to flip the narrative to, I'm sorry I'm a goddess, but hi. Whatever works until we get there.
I love that. I love that so much. Yes, so much. Just echoing that, like not apologizing for just existing. Like
Yeah.
take up the space, be audacious, be confident in that, like be able to know, like, yeah, there's we have this life. I believe in multiple lives, but for those who might not, but or like just not taking this life for granted, like being able to, like, really, if you could go full out and like be so proud of your life at the end of your life, like what would you do? Do those things, step into that, be audacious and move forward with that.
Yes, I agree. This is work that I've been wanting to do my entire life. Sexuality is something that I have been studying my whole life. I was the
Mhm.
opposite. So I didn't grow up in like purity culture or shame around that sort of thing. Like, I was groomed. So I was on the
Mm,
total flip side of things.
mm,
And I also, maybe part of that, I don't know, or if just because of who I am as a person, but I was really drawn to sacred sexuality. And I'm kind of weird though, because I'm not promiscuous at all. And I know a lot of people think that one means the other, but it never,
mm,
it never did for me. Um, and so I learned a lot about sex over the years, and there was a lady, her name, it was Talk Sex with Sue, was one of the shows that I loved. And she was this older lady and she taught about sex and people would call in and she'd answer questions. And I was like, oh, I want to do that.
I love that.
And so just having that component into this work for me just feels so natural. So that's the other thing.
Mm.
Like for a while I didn't want to be perceived as like this person, like promiscuous person that I'm not, just because I'm talking about sex. Because sometimes that does open you up to like be judged that way, and have men be like, oh, you're for the streets. It's like, shut up.
Or like, I mean, I would succeed on the streets.
You don't even realize. I could teach you
But
so much
yeah,
about sex, but okay.
yeah, I get it. I hear you. Because yeah, that was even when I first started being more curious, like you said a couple years ago, when I'm like, I want to start talking about this, but started like kind of safer with just like joy and bliss, and then like
Yeah,
pleasure and sensuality, and then found this program and I'm like, okay, let's do it. And those things definitely have come up for me at different times. And even now, like I love what I'm doing. And even now, there are certain people in my life that I'm like, oh, what are they going to think about me when they see this post? And not like shame about it, but like, oh, they're probably going to be like, oh, she's not as
pure.
angelic as we
Yeah,
thought she was. And it's only a few people, which is really interesting. But before I started, like when I first started talking about pleasure and sensuality, probably again, like 2021, 2022, so scary. Like it was so scary because I'm like, I really want to talk about this, but I'm terrified because people are going to be like, excuse me, that's not godly, or that's not this, or that's not that. And I'm not religious anymore. I grew up in religion, but I have a lot of people that follow me that are religious. And so I'm like, oh, they're not going to invite me to like do their events with them or do these things with them because it's like based around like Christ like. And I'm like, I believe in Christ. I know Christ is a real person. Um, I just don't think he's portrayed the way he actually was,
I agree.
which is very different. So yeah, but yeah, all those fears and all those things came up for me. And then just being like, okay, well, if they think that, fine, I'm gonna keep doing it because I'm passionate about it. But still it's like different layers to be unraveled each time of, those thoughts that are conditioned to come up for people when they see these
Mhm.
things.
Well, especially when they find out you're a mom, because what are your kids going to think? Oh,
Yeah.
well, what about, what's going to happen when their friends hear about you and you talking about that? That's so embarrassing. And it's this, it's that. And it's like, ugh, that's
Yeah.
exhausting, just
I know.
exhausting. And it's also ironic because have you ever, like, there's not that many other moments where you feel so connected to the divine. And if we're just using the word God, whatever that means for anybody else, how do you get closer to God than deep into full body orgasm? Like that's when you really feel it.
Agreed. I know. It's like there's just it's different level. It's a different experience. And I want my kids to know those things. Like I'm not gonna be inappropriate. I'm not gonna like talk about things they're not ready for. But I
Right.
have pictures like this of me and my husband around.
That's
And
so sexy, by the way. I love
oh, thank
that.
you. And I've like told my like people are like, have your kids seen that? I'm like, yeah, it's
Because it's
normal because I don't make it a big deal,
right.
you
And
know?
it shouldn't be, because that's how they end up with shame. That's
Yeah.
how they end up with all this repressed stuff.
Mhm.
And it's mostly in our kind of culture, like in the States in particular, and other places like that, where it's really prudish. And
Mhm.
there are other places where it is a lot more open, but then there are places where it's super condemned. Like you better not say anything about it or it's dangerous, especially as a woman.
Mhm.
And so also just recognizing that I love that. So this is a point that it hit for me. Oh, I got so emotional when it hit me too. I was like, my moment of I'm not going to hold back on sharing this anymore because of how I'm getting perceived, because there's so many women that can't. There's so many women around the world that are not allowed to have that voice. I can have that voice. I'm going to do it for them. I'm going to do it for my ancestors that couldn't do it. I'm going to do it for the women that for thousands of years never were allowed to, and still in so many places aren't allowed to. And for all the women that are even just holding back because they feel that shame. And this work is so powerful that the voices are needed because it really pulls us into that sisterhood of we matter. Our pleasure matters. Our lives matter. How we want to live matters. Having that audacity for us means so much more than just trying to be in our ego. Like having that audacity means that we get to finally thrive. And we're still so far from that. And and that's one of the reasons why community is important as well. And doing this work in person is so beautiful because you get to see all of the people that show up to do it. And you're like, whoa, I am not alone in this.
Yeah.
And that is so fun and so freeing. And you build these connections with people that even if you don't actually end up seeing them again, that memory is a core memory now. And it's
Mhm.
gonna heal a lot within you that you didn't even realize needed to be healed.
Yeah.
And there's something extremely powerful when women get together in those containers and really connect to that energy and the energy of each other. And it's like what has been lacking for so long in sisterhood just breaks wide open. And it's just the most amazing thing.
I agree. It is. And I loved hearing you say that because it's so true. That's something that I've been so passionate about because one of my goals is to that I've had for a long time is to get lots of land and have like this
Same.
community living, right? Just
Yes.
like you get to come
Goal.
together, right? You get like your kids get to play together, the adults get to be together, like a retreat center on the space that like
Mm.
people can come to with their families, like where like you have family activities. We also have the women activities and men activities and together activities and these different like I know it's coming. It's been in my like arena for years and I'm like, hey, come to me, like I'm ready for you, like let me know when you're ready. And so because of that, because of how powerful that is. And absolutely, when you were sharing about the women who can't, that's something that always hits me really hard too, and that gets me more out of the ego of, oh, I'm afraid because what are people going to think of me. It's like, oh well, because these women who can't, like they're so shut down because of different things in the world. And it is terrible and heartbreaking and shattering that that still happens. And I desire to like see a world where women are celebrated in their pleasure and it's revered and it's honored and it's beautiful everywhere in the world, and that every woman gets to experience that. And
Gets to be
you
free.
know yeah, I hope that I'm like still on this earth when that happens.
Oh, I want
And
to see it so
yeah.
bad.
Yeah, same. I'm like,
We're
I'm gonna be
helping.
live until I'm at least 100. So you have some time, world, but like
Get it together.
right? The more that we come together in this and the more that we have these experiences together as women, the more it
Yes.
spreads, the more it like pushes down the things that are trying to stop it. It's like, no, you can't stop us. Sorry, we're not shutting up this time. We're not shutting up like we did years, like centuries ago, hundreds of years ago, however long it was. That's not happening this time.
Yes.
So yeah.
Right. I don't really know how it happened to begin with, but we're done with that.
Yeah. Shoo shoo. Like, get out of here.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why it's also important for men to put in the work too, because like the way that it has been for too long, thousands of years, is men have become our number one predator for women. And that's not the natural order of things. That's not the way it should be. They should
Yeah.
be part of our safety, part of our freedom and our liberation. Like we should be doing that for each other. Everybody should be uh well, it should be a lot different than it has been.
Yeah.
So when men put in the work and they realize that it's not hating men, it's that we're just all doing it wrong. And we all
Yeah.
we all need to fix that. So
Yeah.
when they're able to really get into their masculine and we're able to really get into our feminine, or then the balance happens. And that's what we need. We need to come back into the balance of respecting each other and holding each other as sacred and realizing that we're all connected. So if I'm hurting and hating on you, then I'm hurting myself. I'm hurting the collective. So if we're not able to have that respect, then that's why we ended up where we are. That's why things have gotten so bad, because that was lost. And just I hope it seems like right now there's kind of that battle of where it doesn't really belong. Some people are misunderstanding, like women trying to get their power back and their freedom back is like this uh that means that men have to like trade places. And it's like, no, that's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about revenge. Lucky you.
Lucky you. Yeah, very lucky you. Because you can't understand the capacity of how much a woman is holding in. Like it's normal for men to express their anger because then you know how angry they are. But when a
Mhm.
woman does, you better watch out. But no, I'm like, for real, I was gonna say that same thing that you just shared, and I love that you brought it up because it's so true. Like I even at the retreat I was sharing with women, I'm like, being in your power does not mean you're powerful over another.
Right.
Being in your power, your true authentic power is just being in your power, being who you are. And yes, exactly. Like I've had these conversations too, where it's like, there are some people in the world on both sides, men and women, who want to be powerful over the other,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yes.
Um, but true, authentic, like when you are someone who truly just wants that balance, it's not, yeah, exactly that. It's not women being like, oh, we're going to be powerful now you can't be powerful. And I feel like, yeah, a lot of people misinterpret that. A
Mhm.
lot of people. It's like, oh, men just need to be this, like the men are turning into this. And I'm like, no, coming into harmony with each other, knowing that there's not one over the other. We work together cohesively, and that's when we'll have that peace and that harmony and that's such beauty in the world of that cohesiveness of working together. And that's the kind of world I desire my sons to grow up in. And learn, like I don't want them to have the conditioning like, oh, men are just like this. I don't talk like that around my boys ever. And I know a lot of people who do talk like that around their sons, like, oh, men, or oh, men that, or oh, men
Yeah.
that. I'm like, if if I like, I will never. And because I can understand and have compassion for where they're at. And so it's like, yeah, there are habits and thing and like conditioning that men and women have. And but yeah, with my sons, I'm always like I caught myself a long time ago be like, oh, I'm like, I'm just like, because I can find stuff really easy, and I'm like, because I'm a mom, like you boys, and then I'm like, oh no, even that tiny little thing, I'm like, I'm not gonna have my boys grow up thinking that even that small thing of, oh, I'm just not good at finding things. And so like even that, just that consciousness of how you're talking in front of your kids. Because I want my boys to grow up like knowing both are good. And I want that example of both are powerful, both have this experience, both get to be in this space. And not like men are this way, women are this way.
Right. And anybody that gets just automatically in defense mode over hearing anything like that, it's like, okay, you need to recognize what in yourself is identifying with that to get upset about it. Because the men that are putting in the work, from what I have seen, the men that are putting in the work, they're not taking offense and going right to defense mode whenever a woman is saying, like, I would like to be able to walk down the street and feel safe when I walk there by myself. Now, the good men are like, okay, I'm sorry that that's the world that you have been living in. And they'll see the truth in that, that I don't know of one woman in my entire life that hasn't experienced something that traumatized her, where she was sexualized, where she was harassed, where she was harmed. Uh, Everybody that I have ever met, every woman has had an experience. And so it's really damaging when people are just automatically dismissive. It's like, listen, we're just trying to tell you our side. That way you can understand. That way, like the other day, I was on the sidewalk actually, and a man was walking by and he went like further away from me and said hello. It was like he was letting me know I'm not a threat. It's okay.
Mm.
'Cause I'm hyper vigilant. I have my guard up. Like, I'll be ready to throw down. Like, you are not taking me without a fight. So, like, I will have that block and that resting bitch face so hard, and I'm just like, "Mm-mm, not today, sir." But it's like he was letting me know because he got it, and I just realized in that moment, like, okay, he gets it. He understands, like, I'm not trying to be offensive to him when I'm like, "What are you doing near me?" And
Mm.
that helps so much, and I don't think men understand how much it helps when they just allow us to share our stories without personally getting offended by it or on the defense about it. Just listening is so helpful, and because that makes us feel seen. It makes us feel like we don't have to react either, and there's no more battle. It's just, okay, you're listening, you're starting to understand, and when you're the good guy, then you are going to listen and be receptive, and then that conversation can happen where he can say his side of things, and like, oh well, it actually is really hurtful that I am a good man, I'd never hurt a woman, and she crosses the street when she sees me.
Mm.
And but that opens that conversation of, well, but this is why that happened, because I was attacked, and so i I don't know if you're the good guy or not, and I can't take that chance. Like, so it really helps when we have a space where we can actually open the conversation instead of it being an attack in defense mode and everybody's just offended by the conversation itself. And that bleeds into relationships. It bleeds into friendships. It bleeds over into everything because everybody's hurt. Everybody has so much pain within them, and there's so much suffering in the world in general, and we see it, and we're all burned out, we're all tired, we're all living in a way that we shouldn't be living. Like, we should be living in the community. That is natural. It wasn't until more recently that we got away from that. So everybody has just sick of the world shit basically. and and once we can get in these spaces where we get that community back and that connection back, like, then everybody's going to have their power again.
Mm.
And that is really being in a loving society. And it may not be perfect, but it's where you're able to get into those relationships, going way back to the beginning of our conversation whenever, like, whenever you were saying how you don't have to show up basically perfectly healed to deserve that relationship. I think it's so, so true that you put in the work yourself, yes, but you're already deserving of that great relationship. And you heal in a whole other way when you've got that partner that holds you and has that safe spot for you to just lean in and be held and share, and you do that for each other, and it creates such a beautiful bond for each other as well, and then you don't really have that resentment of, you don't understand me, well, you're just being an asshole. It's like
Yeah.
it's like you can actually like listen to each other and hear each other out, and if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. Like, there is no forcing that, and sometimes when you do the work, maybe it's scary because you might realize that that's not your person, but you needed to learn something there. So even if you realize that's not your person, you've learned something, and you just continue on your journey.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I love what you shared about your husband, and it sounds like he's He's one of the good ones, as far as like, uh, no offense to any other guys that haven't learned about a woman's body, but but good for you, girl.
Thank you. I'm very grateful.
Yeah, it makes such a difference when they're willing to listen and you all can tell each other what you like, and they try and go for it. And I love that also shows that you're safe with him. And I hope that he understands that. Like he has allowed you to feel safe and open up your own sexuality, and that is so amazing to have from a man. And you're going to be able to just continue to thrive because he's provided that for you. And so yeah, you can do so much solo work, but until you've got that partner that holds you in that safety, it's so different. And yeah, and hopefully he understands that he's also probably ruined you for other men because now you've got that bar.
I know. There have been so many times, like, because we all know relationships are hard, right? They're hard.
Yeah.
And it takes work. And it's not
Yes.
just like, oh, it's not rainbows and butterflies anymore. So bye. Like, it's so much work. And there have been times where I have wondered, I'm like, do I stay here? And then like the questions that like one of the funny parts was like, well, I don't want to have sex with anyone else. Or like, I don't want him having sex with anybody else.
I know how good that is.
I know. I'm like, no. But then, the other part of like that part's obviously like the silly and true too,
It's a very important part of a
Um,
relationship.
yes. And then the other part is just like, I'd rather have this frustration with him right now than with anybody else. Like I've had frustrations with other relationships. I've had these things and it's with him, it's like I'd rather with him than with anyone else, you know? And I feel like that was built a lot over time because of that connection of feeling so safe in our most intimate spaces together, that it's like that's built such an even more powerful connection because both of us like he took a while to win me over, but because I was like recently separated, not looking for a relationship. And he has shared with me, it's like he wasn't either. He was like, didn't feel like he was in a place for a relationship, but something kept drawing him. He's like, I know there's something with her. There's something deep, like we're supposed to do something together, And then it took me a while, but I came around to be like, there was some different things that I'll keep it short, but there are different things where I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely like he's the one for me. And so like we both know like there's that depth, there's such depth that we have together. And also because of that, there's so much work,
Mm.
and so many things that come up. And as conscious as he is, there are a lot of pieces that he does have a hard time with emotional safety. Like he doesn't understand emotion very well. And so he backs off and is like, well, I'll just wait for it to pass. And so those are things we've dealt with in our relationship of he can hold me and he holds me really well, like in hugs or different things like that when I'm feeling upset. But like a lot of times he won't know how bad it is until I'm like crying. Um, and the thing too, he's very gentle. He doesn't yell at me. He's never hit me. He's never yelled at me. And it's just like if I'm having like I'm having a hard day and I'm just emotional, he doesn't understand it.
Right.
And so that's something he's working on currently, which I'm grateful for. Um, but yeah, there's just so much beauty within that. It's like that's something where I'm like, if that's the biggest thing that we have to work on, like I'm really grateful, you know?
Yeah.
And so yeah, there's always like it doesn't matter how good so many different parts are, there's gonna be a topic or two or more in your relationship that's very fucking difficult.
Hmm.
And it's how committed am I to being with this person and how much do I want to be with this person? And is it worth it to work on these things? And if the answer is yes, putting in that time and effort and making that a
Mm.
priority.
Yes. I It sounds like such a beautiful and healthy relationship and dynamic. And I like that you pointed out that there's it's not going to be honeymoon phase all the time in a relationship. Like when it's new, it's exciting, you're learning about each other and everybody's, you know, maybe on their best behavior in some instances
Yeah.
and you don't know like as many details about each other and some of those details are annoying.
Yeah, yeah. You're like, "God damn it."
Yeah. Yeah. So once you're really in it, then it's so important to have that deep connection with each other because that's what's going to make it lasting. When you have that deep bond and you show up for each other. And that is where a lot of people end up with their split is they just stop showing up for each other or they see this shiny new thing and so they think it's going to be so much more fun and it's so exciting, but that's just the beginning of a relationship. That's the way it always is in the beginning. And unless you can have that good dynamic where you realize like we're still here for each other and we're still going to show up for each other and I don't care about the shiny new thing because you're my person. You're safe with me. I'm safe with you. This is it. And unless you have a deep connection, that it's never going to be a lasting thing, unfortunately. And emotions in men are very interesting, very, very interesting. Some of them are very much not tapped in at all, and some men are more emotional than others, but I'd say the majority probably are not so much. And women, like I didn't use, I think, well, I'm neurodivergent, so I'm just different, I guess, anyway. And it took me almost my whole life. It wasn't until I got really, really sick that, and I was like, I call it my death year. I was like so, so sick that I was dying that year and it was really bad. It wasn't until that point that I started like being able to realize emotions and figure out my own emotions. So I feel like I kind of can relate to men on that point too, where like the emotional thing before any, I would be empathetic. If one of my friends came crying to me, I'd be very empathetic with them and but I wasn't much of a crier. I wasn't much with emotion. And so I was kind of like, whoa, uh, sorry. Sorry. Like kind of pat her. Like, I don't know what to do here. I'm a little scared. And it's, yeah, so it took me a long time to realize like,
Mm.
okay, emotions are okay. And it does get uncomfortable sometimes where you're just, oh God, I just need to hold them and let them know
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Just doing something small like that, because it is true, like, you don't always have to understand why someone's having an emotion. They're just having an
Yeah,
emotion, so let them have it, you
right.
know?
Yeah. And it's unfortunate because I do also want to acknowledge that there have been some women that have manipulated men with emotion, like
Mhm.
with
Yeah.
crying and things like that. So that has turned some men away from, excuse me, feeling like they can just trust it. Trust that she's
Mm.
having that authentic emotion and she's not trying to be manipulative. Like I said, everybody is hurting right now. Everybody has their
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So it can be really difficult, but yeah, if they even just if you the couple can have the conversation and realize where each other's coming from and what makes you feel held, if it is just hugging and crying and just venting and that's all you need from him and he recognizes that's all he needs to do, then both are going to get something out of it because he's not feeling like okay I'm freaking out, I don't know what to do, and she's not just a mess and like why are you loving me?
Why won't you hold me? Yes.
I just need to cry and I need chocolate and you're not acknowledging me.
Yes. Yes, exactly. It's like the acknowledgement. The acknowledgement is like the biggest thing. Just acknowledge, like, okay, she's upset. I
Mhm.
see you're upset. What do you need? Easy.
Right.
That's it.
Yes. And it's the same with anger as well. Like, because women hold so much anger, like sacred rage is a big deal for us. So if we're having a really shitty day and we need to let some anger out and he's holding that space for her, it is amazing because like all the different emotions need to be able to be felt and let loose and in a healthy way. And so that could even be fun. Like you all can wrestle each other or something. It's like getting her anger out and it's like this fun little moment for each other. But but it's, whatever works for the couple as that release. For some people it's BDSM and that's amazing. And for others they would never go there, but to just have like a little wrestling moment for each other or something like that. Like
Yeah.
there's always these really fun outlets or these just really safe outlets to have. So having that conversation. And again, the mediator can be very valuable because that's when you can have the conversation without it feeling like an attack.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Being able to be in that space and just like you it's hard to say like being neutral, but also like understanding, acknowledging like things that might come up for you when this person is sharing, but still like staying open and being able
Hmm.
to actually hear them and being able to just be like, okay, like they're just sharing what they're feeling. It doesn't make me a bad person. I'm not terrible. I'm not failing. It's just how they're feeling right now. So how can I just stay open and hear them? And then like they also get to do that for you, you know, just having that time together and that experience of being able to just hold the space and acknowledge each other, and that can do wonders in your relationship.
Yeah, I agree. And
Mhm.
it's going to take the relationship so much deeper into a whole new level whenever people can go there with each other.
Yeah,
And the
exactly.
intimacy is definitely going to improve as well because the safety has improved. So the intimacy is going to improve. And for a lot of people, intimacy is conversation and having special time with each other, not just watching TV together or doing the same old routine. Like that doesn't feel like intimacy for most people that want a deep connection anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that too. It's like for me, definitely connection and community, like conversation is very intimate for me. Like that
Hmm.
one-on-one time where we just get to talk, that like I feel so emotionally connected with that. And that's very, very important to me.
Yes. And I think that that is, well, I mean, psychology class showed it in studies as well that emotional uh, affairs are far more harmful than just physical because it's
Mhm.
like the betrayal of having that emotional component. Like you were talking to someone on the side. Why didn't you talk to me? Like we don't even talk like that. Like it feels like so much more of a betrayal because that's sharing intimacy with somebody. And um so the point is just that proves how important connection is with each other and having that intimacy and having conversation because it is a lot more painful when you're not getting it or your partner's giving it to someone else. And like that's the attention that your partner should be getting. That's the emotional connection and the conversation and all the time, all of the things that partner should be getting. And I mean, some people may not care. Some people feel fulfilled and they're fine with that. But others, that's never going to fly. And it hurts. So that's something else that I think is really interesting with couples is it's so nuanced. It's so different. Not all of them are the same. And that's part of what makes it so fun about learning about relationships and the dynamics of relationships and like what's fun for you? And like, oh,
Yeah.
what are you okay with? And you have to be able to talk about your hard nose and your stuff that you're okay with and then the gray area as well of like maybe at some point, but not right now.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It is, and it is very interesting and very eye-opening and so much to learn because there are so many different relationship dynamics and so many different things that people desire or want, but like might be hiding because it feels like it again comes back to shame and it's back to
Hmm.
being a bad person. And so, yeah, being able to start having these conversations that are just, they seem small, but they're huge.
Yes.
Um, about having that emotional connection starts to open those doors more to be like, hey, you know what, I've actually been really curious about this. Like, can we talk more about this together? And
Mhm.
it just opens those doors to be even more authentic and real and connected with each other.
Yes. And active listening is so important. If it's just automatic, on the defense or just not listening, and you can tell they're not really listening, then you're never really going to be able to get there with each other. And you don't feel respected either. You don't feel heard. You don't feel respected. And that is always going to be a huge block in any kind of relationship dynamic. And that's going to shut the other person down as well. If they're not feeling respected and heard, then they're going to stop talking. And that's not a good sign.
Yeah. When they stop talking, you know that it's coming to an end. Like
Yes.
very close.
Every post that I see or anytime I hear a man talking about like, well, my wife stopped talking to me. It was like so great because now it's all quiet. I'm like, you should be worried. If she's not
Hmm.
talking to you, you should be worried.
Yeah.
And uh or dismissing feelings. There's so many going back to even just posting stuff and being disrespected is when, he's looking at other women or liking other women or whatever. Like that hurts most women. And that's super disrespectful in a relationship. Some women don't care, most of them do. And so if he's wanting a relationship, but is just going to call her jealous or insecure because he's doing that to other women, like you're not ready for a relationship if that's how you feel, first of all. Um,
Yeah.
or you need the relationship where she's doesn't care. She's gonna do it too. Nobody cares. It is what it is. Like, but the lie is the worst part. Acting like you don't do it, but you do is the worst part. So it's really it can be complicated with relationships. And you just have to be honest. You have to be honest with what you want, and they need to be honest with who they are. And unfortunately, that seems to be not happening enough right now.
No, absolutely. It does. It happens so often where it's like you go into a relationship and you're already like you're going in with already the fears of, well, they're not going to like this part of me or they're not going to accept this part of me. But yeah, like you even mentioned a while ago on this call of like, well, when we're going in and we can learn to go into relationship with or even dates with just being who we are, knowing like, hey, like on both sides, the man and the woman, like, hey, like instead of going in with the thought of what if they don't like me, going with, hey, like I get to pay attention to if I want to date them and giving yourself the power back and
Hmm.
allowing yourself to just be you. And so many more relationships would start off with a better start. Still not going to be perfect, but like it'll have a better start when you're both being true to like who you really are and not who you think they're going to like.
Yes, authenticity is so, so important in every aspect of life, but especially with any kind of relationships and friendships as well, because like I had said before, like with narcissistic personality disorder, psychotic disorder, like these really, truly difficult relationship dynamics, abusive situations. If they show that in the very beginning, if they were really authentic about how they actually were once they were in a relationship, then it wouldn't really happen very often. So anybody that's not on that level, they need to understand like how serious it is when you're not being authentic, even if it's something small, because then you're just kind of like dipping your toes into that territory. So if you don't want to be that toxic person, then you have to just show up. and be honest with what you want and who you are. And um, it is unfortunate that for those types of people, it would get maybe even used against you. So you have to be careful with maybe how much you share in the beginning. Make sure that there is a connection and they feel safe. But if people were honest and authentic, then it would save everybody a lot of time, because if they went in a first date and said, I want marriage and children in the next 5 years, and the other
Yeah.
person's like, I don't want that, period. Y'all save time.
Yeah, you just saved yourself a lot of time and
Yeah.
heartache. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. I agree with all of that. It's so true. Just if only. Hopefully our world will get to a point where people do that.
Yeah, I wish. But even starting off smaller and knowing what you want and showing up authentically. Like if you're showing up authentically, then at least they know what they're in for.
Yeah.
and and hopefully have the conversations of, if you're going to be in a relationship, then you have to be able to talk about what you want out of life.
Yeah.
And if you wait until you're married to talk about, I've wanted kids my entire life and the other person had no idea, or they were on the fence, and now all of a sudden, well, now we have to choose which we want more because that wasn't talked about. That's not good. People need to be able to deep dive into relationship. And it's just unfortunate how many end up uh, years with somebody, and then they start kind of getting deeper and realize, oh, well, shit, I
Yeah.
kind of in it now, but what was I doing this entire time?
Yeah. No, exactly. It is. And it's just not taught anywhere unless you're actually looking for it,
Yeah.
that these conversations are important. And again, as a mom, like there's so many things I'm going to be making sure my kids are aware of and that they're learning, and so that they have that connection and that knowledge of like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm going to make sure I do these things and make sure I approach like this, or, be myself, or have these deeper conversations, even if it feels scary, because that's what's going to help them to thrive. And that's what would help all of us thrive. But, you don't learn that in school. You don't learn that most of the time from your parents, because they're probably not really even aware of it unless they are, Um, so a lot of people don't even learn that until adulthood, until they're already there, you know. So yeah.
Yeah. I think it's amazing that you're doing that with your kids. And it seems like millennials and younger are the ones that are like, we're going to change how things have been done.
Yeah.
And it's so needed. And also, going back to relationship as well, as how much the dynamic changes once you have kids. So if you have a really great connection, then you'll be able to navigate that a lot better and hopefully stay on the same page instead of going apart from each other, because kids are going to take over, and uh, it's going to change everybody's life completely. So, um, yeah, having that deep level of connection and intimacy before that point is also good. There's not that many people that can survive it if they haven't gone there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. Just having, I mean, I already had my oldest when me and my current husband met. So he's seen me as a mom. He knows that's important. He knew that was important to me. Um, he's 5 years younger than me. So he's like, he was still like learning some things. But yeah, he knew that about me, and I was very open from the beginning. Like I shared so many things with him that like, and same with him, like we were just like totally open. Obviously there were some things that he probably didn't share because he was nervous, and I didn't share because I was nervous, so it took us a while to get a little bit more than
Mhm.
that. But in general, like he knew I was like, here's where I stand, here's what I'm doing with my life. Here's what's important to me. Came between you and my son. I'm choosing my son. Like I'm like, these are my boundaries, these are my lines. And yeah, even then, like him stepping in as a bonus dad was a different dynamic. And then us having our son together, our 4-year-old son, is like it was a whole new dynamic. And different things come into play with that. And so it's so important, yes, to definitely foster and create more of that connection before any of these things happen, so that there's still going to be things that throw a wrench in it and like something new that you're learning, but at least having that solid foundation beforehand is very helpful.
Yes. Yes. Knowing what you want and what you don't want to tolerate is extremely valuable when you're going into a new relationship. And things can change along the way. You can learn something new about yourself, even that you realize, like, oh, well, that wasn't a boundary before, but it is now.
Mhm.
Or that was a boundary before and it's not now. Then,
Yeah.
yeah. But if you have that open conversation and you're close with each other, like really close with each other, then it's you'll be able to grow together. So it's nice. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it sounds like you have a really great relationship. Hopefully the men will start showing up for your coaching and and the
I
couples.
know it'll be beautiful. I'm excited because yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, right now, my husband and I, like for the past few weeks, there's been a little bit of a struggle because again, relating to emotional and um it's hard for me, like on one side, because like obviously I want that more, but also it's so hard to not want to have sex with him. So that's like an issue because I'm like frustrated, but I'm also like, ugh, work it out. Just I'm like, because I'm usually the one that approaches him, and like he's more of an avoidant attachment,
Hmm.
because he doesn't know what to do. He's like at a loss with emotions. So he actually is going to start some therapy next week. That because I told him I was like, I really need something to shift here. I'm like, and I know we've had all these conversations again and again about emotional dismissiveness, and he doesn't do it to be mean. He's just like he doesn't know. He's so out of his element. And so he's going to start that Tuesday, which I'm super grateful for. Because I know a lot of it comes from his childhood. He had a really, really rough childhood. And he's come very, very far from that. But there's still things that when he's kind of heightened or doesn't know what to do, those like come out where he's like, okay, I'm just not going to talk for a day or a week, and I'm just like, that makes it
That,
worse for me. So
yeah.
he's been good about, he still hugs me every day and holds me for a long time. It's just the talking that is hard for him about it. Um, but yeah, for me, I'm just like, come on, like I'm ready for this. Like I'm ready to like, I want to have sex with you again, but I'm emotionally just not feeling connected right now. And so that's just not, I'm not gonna make myself.
Hmm.
Um, so that's been a little bit like a navigation right now with that. But very grateful for his willingness to go because he knows he has a hard time with that. And so these are the things that I'm like, it sucks in the moment. It really sucks. But at the same time, I'm like, you know what? It takes us further each time. Like we grow more each time. And then also when I start doing work with couples, I can understand that a little bit deeper of like, hey, I've been there. Like I get it when this happens. And my husband too. And I can share some different things that, he has worked on or things that have helped him. And obviously the tools that we learn in here as well. But um, it's like, I don't look at it like, oh, we're struggling right now. It must not be meant to be. It's like, oh, we're struggling right now. And I can see his pain and I can have compassion for that while also at the same time acknowledging my hurt and sadness by it. Um, and so that's also been a beautiful growth opportunity in those different times of, yeah, fucking sucks because I'm a person who shares my emotion and don't want to have to explain why I'm feeling an emotion. And
Mm.
he's someone that's like, he wants to fix it, so he wants to know why. I'm like, no, you know. And
Yeah.
so it's been a process. It's been a journey, and I'm grateful that he's been on it with me and been in that willingness to do that as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's amazing that he is going to start therapy, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot there that he'll realize that, oh, so that's
Yeah.
there. And
Yeah.
it seems to be a pretty normal coping mechanism, is to just kind of like not dealing with emotions. That's because somebody's going to explode, something's going to happen. So I need to be just very stoic.
Yeah.
And once you start unpacking the whys and the things like that, and why you're avoidant, and um, it's so eye opening and so transformative. And the fact that he's willing is amazing. And
Yeah.
I'm excited for both of you for that. And also, sometimes men need to realize that they don't need to fix in the moment, they just need to listen.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
sometimes we have to voice that in the very beginning, like, I don't need you to fix this. I just need you to listen because I need to vent.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I do with them too. I'm like, no fixing, just listening. And I can tell it's so hard. He grew up in a family where children are seen and not heard.
Mhm.
Um, uh, and abusive, and really rough. And I'm so fucking grateful that he is not that way, like with abuse or anything like that. Like emotions, he's still, again, he's like, I don't know how to do this. But it's very far away from how he grew up, which is good. But I know, because I can see his little boy self just like wanting that, but also not even knowing how to do it or how
Mhm.
to even like start it. And yeah, so it's like uh, also being able to see your partner with compassion and love, like see their inner child,
Yes.
like how they're probably like, oh, I want it so bad, but I don't even know how because I never got it. So how do I even begin to give it?
Mhm.
So very important to pay attention to that as well.
It is. Yeah. Really just having empathy for each other. And um, dang, I forgot again what I was going to say. but but yeah, I love that he is willing to put in the work. And oh, right, I was going to say it's it's not about becoming a very emotional person. And I know that you recognize this, but for the people that don't really know the coaching kind of spaces and containers, like, a lot of men are resistant because they're afraid that they're going to end up these emotional creatures. And that's not the case. And they don't have to just go into a therapy or a coaching or any of the things and just cry and become something they're not. Like, that's not going to happen. If you just aren't that person, it's not going to happen. But if you meet your child self, and it's just facing and going into that, oh, now I see what little me had to deal with. Now I see why I react the way that I do, why I'm hanging on to the things that I'm hanging on to. And it just puts the puzzle pieces together a little more, and
Yeah.
opens up a better relationship to yourself and to others. But it's not emasculating. Also, you're
Yes.
not going to become emotional if you're that's just not who you are. So it's
Yeah, you're
totally
not going to change your whole entire life. It's just going to help you understand yourself more and understand your partner more. Like that's what it comes down to, you know?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the healing as well. It could just end up being to that point, like, he may never be a crier, but he'll realize, like, all right, I don't have to just shut down for a day completely. I can just say, I need some time. And let me figure out what I need to do here. And like,
Mhm.
it can be as simple as that.
Yeah.
And because healing's different for everyone. But yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people think that going into therapy and into all these transformational things is going to make them into an entirely different person that they never want to be. Like, I know for myself, for example, I can do so much healing work. I can have what I really want out of life. And I'm still never going to be that I am so positive and happy all the time, because that's just not who I am. I've been through way too much in life.
Mm.
I am like the dark feminine. That's my vibe. And that's what
Mm.
I relate to. So that's just who I am. And I've come a very long way. I've healed a whole lot along the way, but I'm still me.
Mhm.
And so hopefully people are going to recognize that they'll still be themselves.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Just more of themselves. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And I love that about the dark feminine. I love the dark feminine. That's like, I love playing with her. It's like I know that I can go even deeper with her.
Hmm.
Because I feel like I can hold both. Like I can be in my like dark feminine and also my light feminine. Like I can have that balance. And just like you said, it doesn't change who you are. It brings out more of who you are. You
Yes.
know? Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, because we learn so much coping along the way that we kind of go away from our true selves. Um, like it's not actually in my nature to be more on the meek side, but
Mm.
that became like a coping. So learning to have the audacity, learning to be in that fuck you space was a great thing.
Yeah.
Very liberating for me. But again, I am the dark feminine. So the light feminine for me, I love to see it, but I'm never gonna be it. Like, I can kind of dabble a little bit in that arena, but if it's just I'm just on the dark side of things, I guess.
Yeah. And that's beautiful. You know that about yourself, you know? I think
Yeah.
it's amazing. It's so good to know about ourselves, like what feels so good and what resonates with each person in their own way. And yeah, again, it just comes back to it doesn't change you.
Hmm.
So the work that we do, at least, some
Yeah.
work out there does just like cover up a lot of stuff, but especially the work that we do, it uncovers a lot of stuff, which is
It
beautiful.
it definitely does. Well, even one of the things that I realize is I have to try to be softer sometimes because I've had to be so hard and harsh and dark and like not harsh in a mean way, but like as a defense mechanism, like, oh, you seem like a threat. I'm gonna let you know. you're
Yeah.
not you're not coming for me. Because I would see it as vulnerable. So
Mm.
it takes the right kind of person to have access to my vulnerability. But I realized that I had people tell me along the way, like, you're very intimidating. I was like, what? Me? Really? I'm like a kitten. And they're like, no, you're not. It's like, oh, okay. Okay. So I realized for the light feminine, for example, like I had to be a little softer
Mm.
and let her know, like, hey, you're safe with me.
Mm.
And it's okay. I'm not gonna tell you to just harden up if you need to cry. I'll let you cry. I'm here for you.
Mm.
And so that was something I realized about myself was that I it's not always okay to come across as really dark and like yeah, that's me, but I am also able to hold space for people that need to just be really positive and shiny and happy and I can be happy for them, but if I'm not showing them that, then they'll never know that I was safe for them to be around.
Mm.
And so, yeah, that was definitely one of the eye-opening things for me. I've had a lot along the way, but that was one of them in this space as well, being, the coaching container. Because I didn't want anybody to feel like, well, she's just scary. I can't talk to her.
Mm. That's interesting, yeah, because I didn't feel that right when I got on the call.
That's
Like I said,
good.
it's very calming and grounding and like just like a power, obviously, within that space. So it's like you don't feel like a pushover. It just feels like you have your power. It's also just very like grounding.
Oh, that's so good to hear.
Yeah.
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 It's interesting when people give you feedback about how you come across.
Mm.
And I think that comes up in relationships a lot as well. Like,
Mhm.
really? I came across that way? Hmm. And you may not
Yeah.
realize it at all. And it's really eye-opening. But yeah.
Oh yeah, it's different perceptions there for sure.
Yeah.
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 So
Sorry, I'm just realizing the time. This has been
yeah.
so fun, and um I'm so grateful to have had this time with you and to have this amazing conversation. I feel like I could easily do this again and again and again with you. I've had so much fun. And I love that we covered so many topics. I love that I can ping all over the place and you're right there with me. Like, that was great.
That's literally how I have conversations.
Me
I'm
too.
just
I
like,
can't focus.
I'm like, no, let's go here now. Let's go here now. But somehow it all still relates. So, it works.
Yes. And I just thank you for allowing me to go all over the place and overshare and just dive into all kinds of things. Thank you. It was great.
Yeah,
I'm so glad that you're
same.
here.
Yeah, me too. It was awesome. Like I know it's like 2.5 hours. Like doesn't feel that long because we were just
No.
like talking, which is beautiful. And I loved it. And yeah, being able to just go off each other and same like shares, how we both were sharing, like going to different things was just felt very fluid and yeah, it was nice.
Did we just become besties?
Yes. Yes.
Yay.
I
I'm
loved
so glad.
it.
I did too. I had
Yeah.
so much fun.
Mhm.
But being cognizant of time, I will, we can start wrapping up. So, is there anything that you would like to share that you feel like we didn't really touch on, or any part of your work or a different subject or whatever that you want to just share before we wrap?
No, I mean, right now feels good. Feels like the things that we touched on are very like you can see how they all relate to each other and how different things affect your life if you're, kind of just avoiding it or covering over it. And yeah, feel like we covered it all pretty well.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, good. Is there any upcoming things that you have? Like, do you have any retreats or anything that you want to kind of add in to share? I'm not sure
Yeah.
exactly when I'm going to be posting this, but
Mhm.
I'll
Yeah.
definitely be adding your website, whatever it is, any social media. Where can people find you, and what work do you have coming up?
Yeah, awesome. So my website, I've got to update it, but it's just Amber K-A-Y coaching.com. And my Instagram is Amber K _ pleasure alchemist. And Facebook is just Amber K. I have coven circles every month. I live in Utah. And I have a retreat coming up next year, probably 2 retreats, but I don't have the dates yet. And then I've got a really fun offer that is going to start in January. But leading up to that, I've got a really fun offer that I'm going to be putting out there as well to really get you in tune with your body and your senses and your pleasure. So, yeah, I'm super excited.
Amazing. So everybody look for this, okay? Get ready.
Super excited.
I love that. Oh, I'm excited. I don't know what it is, but I'm excited.
It's gonna be fun.
I love
Yeah.
that. I love that just from the beginning of our conversation, like the growth that you have shared throughout your process is so amazing. And the fact that you stuck with it and kept going is really just showing that you're meant to do this. This work is definitely for you. And I want to acknowledge the work that you've put in and just really celebrate the fact that you've done it and you put yourself out there and you're doing really, really meaningful work. And it matters so much to the collective and every individual that you work with. So thank you for doing the work. And I'm so excited to see what else you end up doing and where all this goes. It's going to be great. And now we're connected. So now I can watch the rest of the process.
Yeah, same to you. I'm excited, just feeling
Yeah.
your heart and feeling like what you are excited about. And I can feel your energy of just the power and the magnetism of what you're gonna be putting out there even more. So yeah, I'm excited.
Thank you. Thank you so much for doing this with me. We'll definitely have to do it
Yeah.
again sometime. But stay in touch in the
Yes,
meantime.
definitely. But also, before we go, I want to take a picture with you.
Okay.
So I'm gonna
I don't know
hold.
what's going on with my camera. I have terrible saturation. I can't figure it out. So
You look beautiful. You look very glowy. All
thanks.
right. One, two, three. All right. I got a couple. Oh, so cute. Okay. Amazing.
I
Well,
never
thank
know what to do when I
you.
have to pose.
No, you're like, it's like you just smile, just be pretty. That's very natural for you. It's true.
I think you're
Yeah.
so gorgeous. And
Oh, thank you.
I love your
You
hair
too. Thank
and your eye. You're just beautiful.
you so much. You too. I literally just every time you were talking, I'm like, she's so beautiful.
I was doing the same thing to you.
Perfect. So we are best friends.
Yes.
I love it. I'm excited and yeah, definitely love to just stay in touch and have different conversations and
Absolutely.
yeah, I loved it.
I'm so grateful that we were able to connect.
Me too. Me too. Super excited.
Yes. So we will catch up soon and continue with our coaching program that we're in together, which
Mhm.
is super intensive, but we got this
Yes.
and all the fun, exciting things that we have coming up
Yeah.
that we don't even know about yet. It's going to be
I
great.
know. Coming into, they're already in our vortex. They're just like coming physically.
Absolutely. It's on its way.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I loved
Thank
it.
you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll talk to you soon.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.